Good morning. I'd like to call the Committee on Rules to order. Please call the roll.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I know that the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services just finished, and there is a subcommittee that is still meeting. But we do have a quorum, and we need to dispense with some legislation here this morning. Senator Reeves's SJ 261? Or is one of his bills that needs to go by for the day? Let me see which one it is. It's the one dealing with the Gaming Commission. Which one is it? 261? Okay. Need a motion? No, SJ 261, the request is to have that one go by for the day.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes, sir.
I would so move.
Second.
All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Also, Senator Donovan's SB 1172, she indicated to me that she's going to have a substitute for that takes it out of our bailiwick, so I would like to have a motion to have that re-referred to Education and Health. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1172 be re-referred to Education and Health. Please indicate your vote for that on the board.
Ayes 11, noes 0.
Ayes 11, noes 0 on re-referring that to Education and Health. Also, Senate Bill 1334 on page 4. That is Senator Hashmi's bill dealing with individualized IEPs. We need to re-refer that one also to Education and Health.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1334 be re-referred to Education and Health. Please indicate your preference for that.
Ayes 11, noes 0.
Madam Clerk, I'm trying to push my button.
We had closed the vote.
Ayes 11, no 0, so that too is referred. So we will now begin with Senator Bell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill, SJ 230, is in response to the unfortunate increase of hate crimes and related activities against the Asian American population. Frankly, we believe that this is often traced back to COVID-19 and the believed origins of that disease. We have a very large Asian American population in my district. Around 7% of our population in Virginia is Asian Pacific Islander, and it's a growing population. I think if we look at Virginia before we had the diversity we had today, and we look today, it's an amazing amount of prosperity we have today. And I think our prosperity in large part is due to the open climate we have for business and the way that we treat everyone in Virginia. This bill simply would direct the the Crime Commission to study this and hopefully help us come up with a better plan of attack going forward to stop this trend. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you or the committee have.
Are there any questions to Senator Bell on this proposal?
Second.
Moved and seconded that SJ 230 be... Send a letter to...
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, what the Crime Commission has said to me about different things is that they don't have the bandwidth to do studies right now, and they wanted, at least with respect to something I introduced, I think they wanted me to ask for a motion to pass by indefinitely and write a letter to the Crime Commission asking them to put it on a study, and they would try to do it within the next 2 years. I don't know if you got a similar letter Senator Bell, I don't know.
Madam Chair, I received a letter from the Executive Director of the Crime Commission, and frankly, you may not like my response. My response is, it's a problem. The General Assembly tells them we need to study it. They need to study it. I don't think waiting a year or two is good enough. The other thing I would offer is, while I think the Crime Commission is the best place for this to take place, maybe we have to look at another place to study it. But I do think we need to take action, and I hear what you're saying. I'll be honest, I was taken aback by that letter because I think this is an urgent problem and needs to be dealt with now.
Madam Chair.
Senator Marston.
Thank you. What is the, traditionally, how have we dealt with study requests that we approve but we're just oversubscribed to what the capabilities are? Do they have an ability to delay that? I think it's maybe important to get on the record here, but will they have the ability to control that, those studies over time?
Madam Chairman.
Senator Howell.
I'm no longer on the Crime Commission, but when I was, and Senator Norman as well, we had a very elaborate process for how we would determine what order we would do the various studies in. The Crime Commission does extremely high quality work, and I would hate to start pushing them around and having them do additional studies when they don't necessarily have the staffing for it at the moment.
Senator Norman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Following up on Senator Howell's comments, before I was retired from the Crime Commission, Senator Howell is correct, but two thoughts. One, if we wait a couple of years to act on this, I don't think that that's going to improve the probability of it because the Crime Commission has a continuous inventory that they're accumulating, and at least, number one, it will put it in the queue. Number two, I think, at least I was parenthetically advised, the Crime Commission took a little bit of a different approach this year than what Senator Howell and I were accustomed to, and that they had a biased executive committee that made determination on which studies were going to take place without regard to the prioritization of them.
Thank you, Senator Norman. Okay, so what is the will of the committee? We have a motion to report. Is this a voice? Second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we report SJ 230. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
It's reported. Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Start with Senate Bill number 952. This is an update of the Alzheimer's legislation that's been around for a while. It does a couple of things. I think there's a substitute for it.
Moved and seconded that we had.
There are amendments, 3 amendments.
There are 3 amendments,
Okay,
not a substitute.
all right. Yes, okay.
Moved and seconded that the amendments be adopted. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, your amendments are adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Effectively, it extends the sunset date until the year 2026, and it adds more members that to the commission, from changing from 9 to 19, I believe. So I don't know whether it's, yes, there is someone who wishes to speak to it.
Okay, if we have speakers, please be extraordinarily brief.
I would, Madam Chair, I would appreciate some explanation of the amendments too.
Okay.
That we just adopted.
The biggest one is, in the original, it used the term Commissioner of Behavior of Health, and whereas it should have been the Commissioner of the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Josh Myers representing the Alzheimer's Association. We thank the patron for putting this in. What this bill does is it extends that sunset and adds several agency heads, DMAS, DSS, DAWS, Behavioral Health, and the Commissioner of Health or their designees to the Commission as non-voting members ex officio. We think that adds some expertise to the Commission, especially this coming year as they are updating their dementia state plan.
Senator Ruff, you're going from 15 to 19 members. Why is there a need for membership?
I'm sorry.
19 members.
Yes, those 19 members, or those extra members, are those agency heads or their designees that would join the Commission just as an advisory role. Similar to other commissions that we have, the Commonwealth Council on Aging, the affected agencies that deal with that population, they have members of different agencies that also sit on that. So this would be kind of conforming, similar.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on Senate Bill 952?
Those on Zoom who would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers on Zoom, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded that SB 952 be reported. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes 13, no 0. That bill is reported.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The next bill is Senate Bill 913. This is at the request of the Secretary of Finance to include him as his designee as a permanent member of the Public-Private Partnership Advisory Commission. This would allow him to work with them as they go through the process rather than trying to play catch up after they made a decision.
Are there questions relative to Senate Bill 913?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Senator Deeds.
Being on there now.
Thanks.
We're
Try that again with the mic.
Okay. There's nothing in the existing language that would prevent the Secretary of Finance from being there. We're just designating him now as, the existing law says 3 secretaries. Now we're just changing it to the Secretary of Finance plus 2 secretaries.
Correct. Yes.
Second.
Finance and Appropriations has asked that this be sent to them. So if you could amend that.
Second.
They asked for it. So the motion is to report and re-refer to Finance and Appropriations. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 913 be reported and re-referred to Finance and Appropriations. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes 13, no 0. That bill is reported.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ruff. Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration today, I have Senate Bill 1430. What the bill provides is for the Department of Education to convene a stakeholder work group to make recommendations on reducing barriers, basically to work for English language learners while they're still students. We have had a significant number of folks come to Virginia that speak other languages, so much so that across the whole Commonwealth, About 1 in 10 of all of our K-12 students are English language learners currently, yet only 4% of the students participating in work-based learning, the sort of things that we want to help these young people get on the fast track after graduation. Only 4% of them are participating only 4% of the English of these students are English learners. So it's a more significant issue in some parts of Virginia than others, but it's significant all over Virginia. And we think that by doing the work group in the Department of Education, using existing resources, we can develop best practices and send them all over Virginia. Sometimes people are surprised in the district I represent how many English learners we have, and we want to help these young people get off to the best start in their career.
Any questions to Senator Suderline on this legislation? Hold up. Yeah, I know we want to on the fast rail. Anyone here to support the legislation? Quickly, please.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Michael Malloy, Fairfax County Schools. About 20% of our students are English language learners, which translates to about 36,000 students. Anything we can do to reduce barriers for them is very much appreciated.
Okay. Anyone here in opposition?
Those on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Now we can fast track.
Sounds wonderful.
Second.
Moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1430 be reported. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
I wanted to explain it on the floor. Thank you, Senator Spruill.
Okay, I can go back and vote no.
No, Senator Spruill voted no originally.
Ayes 13, noes 0.
Thank you, Madam Chair,
Ayes
and the
13,
committee.
no, 0. Bill's reported.
I appreciate that.
Senator Boysko.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I think you will like this one as much as you like the last one. My bill, Senate Joint Resolution 246, is requesting that the Department of Education study options for and the feasibility of expanding the criteria for granting a waiver of teacher licensure requirement for those hard-to-fill positions in science, technology, engineering, the arts, and the maths. We know that this has been a challenge not only since the pandemic, but even before that, with people retiring and leaving the work leaving the workforce. This is a bill that is coming before you at the request of Fairfax County Public Schools, which, like many other counties in the Commonwealth, continue to struggle to fill specialized teaching positions across a wide range of subjects. They're looking to streamline the hiring process for those in the industries who want to teach classes in those very hard to fill, requiring specialty expertise like computer science, theater tech, health science, computer sciences, and emergency services management. And I ask that you pass the bill. I've got Fairfax County government here to school board to speak if you have any questions specifically.
Any questions to Senator Boysko on SJ 246?
One question, Madam Chair.
Senator Favola.
Senator Boysko, under your bill, the teachers don't have to go through the prospective teachers don't have to go through any screening by the Department of Ed, or they don't need a provisional license. It's just somebody who happens to be knowledgeable in science or math could be hired, and is that correct?
Madam Chair, Senator Favola, this would conduct a study through the Department of Education, reviewing what the current law is on granting a waiver of teacher licensure. It would consider options for expanding criteria for granting a waiver for these teacher licensure requirements, and would be focusing specifically on removing the barriers to these advanced specialty STEAM classes that we're trying to encourage students to go into once they get out of high school. So it would be in coordination, collaboration through the Department of Education.
Senator Marston.
Thank you. Would the goal here be that eventually they would become certified at a later point, but that their entry into the system could be waived, or is that a permanent I don't have to be certified.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna allow my, I'm gonna phone a
Lifeline.
friend.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Michael Mueller, Fairfax County Schools. Madam Chair, Senator Marsden, to your question, it could be either way. It could be a pathway to permanent employment, but really kind of what we're drilling down to is we're really drilling down to kind of the individual course level. So there are certain courses that we have that we can't find somebody who's full-time who would teach an entire course load, but has a specific expertise. And it could be the situations that Senator Boysko mentioned. You could also be a very advanced language, theater tech, theater lighting, something that's very, very specialized that we bring somebody in to just teach a single course. And I think, Madam Chair, to your question also, Senator Favola, there are mechanisms right now for CTE specific positions to be able to be licensed. Part of what we're facing here is that these don't neatly fit underneath the existing umbrella. So we're looking to expand some of those waivers. There still would be a process that they would have to go through, but it wouldn't just be a complete exemption, and that's what we're asking the department to look at.
Madam Chair,
Senator Peterson.
I just want to comment. I think this is an excellent idea. I mean, there are teaching positions that are unfilled, let's say in languages, Korean, for example, where you just can't find people that have a license, but there's a demand for the study. Same thing would be auto mechanics would be another. And we need to get people in the classroom. We're dealing with basically labor shortage all over our economy, but particularly acute in our public schools. So I think this is an excellent way to go.
Anyone here in opposition?
Those on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers with their hands raised, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, I move that we report the resolution.
Moved and seconded that SJ 246 be reported. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Hackworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. And we had asked that the one go by for the day. Did you get that? The Senate SJ 258 to go by for the
You would like for that to go by for the day?
Yeah, please.
Okay. All those without opposition, SJ 258 will go by for the day.
Thank you. And also, so what we have here in the one before us, Senate Bill 239, it's a study. And what this does is this asks for the request the Compensation Board to study the feasibility and physical impact of including the locality's total square mileage when calculating funding for deputies, sheriffs, and issue a report by the 2024 regular session of the General Assembly. And this was brought to us by several of our sheriffs, and we have two of the sheriffs' associations to speak to that. But for example, one of our counties, Bland County, in my district, is comprised of one-third Jefferson National Forest. And so they still have a large geographical area to cover. But the way the funding is right now, they can only fund so many deputies. So we would like to ask a study to include the geographical size of each county and incorporate that into the how much the fiscal impact would be for that. And I've got sheriff's, yes, right here, got a couple people to speak to that.
Yes.
Madam Chair, members of this distinguished body, Dylan Bishop on behalf of the Virginia Law Enforcement Sheriffs. These are the sheriffs, particularly in rural areas, that have the primary police powers in their locality. The funding formula of one deputy for every 1,500 residents works for urban areas, but it doesn't work for rural areas in particular. And it often creates a situation where we have a safety hazard in rural areas where we may only have funding for 2 or 3 deputies to be on shift at a time, but a locality like Bedford County may span 500 square miles. So your backup is at best 45 minutes away in some of these instances. So we just want to take a look at how we might be able to adjust our funding formula to cater to our rural communities to make sure that they remain safe, just like our urban communities.
Madam,
Senator Deeds.
I'm not worried about studies, but let me ask you, the population of Land County is what, and how many deputies do they have?
If you'll give me 1 second, I could tell you.
Because I know the population of Bath County is about 4,400, and they've got 15, 16, 17, 18 deputies, something like that. A lot more than one per 1,500.
And I would tell, Madam Chair, Senator Deeds, Tazewell County is the same way. The issue with that is the locals have to pitch in for the additional deputies, and that puts the strain on them. That's what we're trying to do, is to see if that comp board could see about getting those paid for, and the localities not having to pitch in as much.
Mr. Jones.
Madam Chairman, I'm John Jones, representing the Virginia Sheriff's Association. Senator Deeds, to try to answer your question, this formula of 1 to 1,500 only applies to those sheriffs that are primary law enforcement. There are 86 of those sheriffs, and they run from Southwest all the way to Accomack County. The formula for 1 to 1,500 for Bath is 5 deputies, and I think those deputies are filled now. So if currently the formula approved by the General Assembly, and the statute actually provides 1 deputy to 1,500, but we are 302 deputies short, or $16 million short to reach that. So we have budget amendments in on it.
And Madam Chair, I guess the point I'm making, Bath County 1 to 1,500 to be with 3. They only have less than 4,500 people. You know, when I was a kid, you had a sheriff and a deputy and a trooper and a game warden, and now you got a sheriff and 15 or 16 deputies and about half a dozen state troopers and several game wardens.
There's a lot of work to do, Madam Chairman.
Okay, are there others in support of the legislation?
There is one speaker on Zoom. If anyone else would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. Sheriff Richard Vaughn, if you can unmute and begin your testimony now.
1 minute, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Richard Vaughn. I'm the Sheriff of Grayson County. I'm the President of the Virginia Law Enforcement Sheriffs. We have nearly 1,400 members across the state. Many of them are in rural counties. For example, Grayson County is 450 square miles, but we only have 14,000 citizens. The current staffing standard developed back in the 1990s, the 1 in 1,500, it's extremely outdated, especially for rural counties. The Compensation Board only funds 11 law enforcement positions for Grayson County. Of those, 3 are supervisors, 3 are investigators. That only leaves us 5 state-funded positions to patrol 450 square miles. Many of these rural counties cannot afford to supplement additional positions. Last spring, we conducted an operational study of the Grayson County Sheriff's Office. The firm looked at workload, the size of the county, our geographical barriers, and population. The firm recommended that we have a minimum of 16 deputies assigned to patrol adequately cover the 24/7 coverage. Being short on staff not only creates an officer safety issue, our supervisors don't have time to supervise.
Thank you, Sheriff. Could you wrap up your remarks, please?
Yes. The Virginia Law Enforcement Sheriffs ask you to please support this. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
That completes the speakers, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Anyone in opposition?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that SJ 239 be reported. All those in favor, please. This is a voice vote. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Senator Stanley.
Before you is Senate Bill 1124, which comes from the School Modernization Commission. As you know, Senator McClellan and myself have worked for many years trying to do what we can to help modernize our schools, especially in our inner cities and rural areas. One of the things that we think is a priority is defining, in a sense, what is a modern school, or what is an appropriate repair. So Senate Bill 1124, which Senator McClellan has given to me, basically tasks the Board of Education to make recommendations to the General Assembly in the standards of quality to establish standards for maintenance and repair, operations of the physical plant, renovations, and even new construction for elementary schools or high schools or middle schools, and then
In those standards, there must also be included a percentage of the current replacement value for public school buildings, that a school board should budget for the maintenance of the operations of the building, and then it allows even other such standards as the board deems appropriate to determine what is a modern school and what is a modern structure for our children to learn in a 21st century learning environment. So this bill also requires the Board of Education to solicit input of relevant stakeholders, the public, and then it shall then return a recommendation to the Chairman of the House Committee on Education and the Senate Committee on Education and Health no later than December 1st of 2023. So by the end of this year, we should have a report on what we think the minimum standard should be for operations, renovation, modernization, or even what a new school should include. And that's the bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Any questions to Senator Stanley on SB 1124? Those in support of the bill?
Those on Zoom who would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers on Zoom, Madam Chairman.
Anyone in opposition?
Madam Chair,
This has to go to Finance.
Oh, really?
I move that the bill be reported and re-referred to Finance. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1124 be reported and re-referred to Finance. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
The Chair of Finance is really going to have just a Bill Stanley day up there. I can feel it. I can feel it coming.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Ayes 14, no 0. That's reported.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Senator Morrissey.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm here on Senate Bill 1361, and preliminarily, there are two amendments that I'd ask to be reported. The first.
We have the amendments.
The first amendment strikes the provision that the number of parole board members be increased from 5 to 10, and the bill no longer alters how parole board members are appointed. And secondly, it adds an enactment clause of July 1, 2024. Yes. Yep. Madam Chair, as staff has just explained to me, there's a substitute bill that accomplishes both of those things.
I move that we adopt the substitute.
Moved and seconded that the substitute be adopted. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, substitutes before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this bill establishes requisite criteria for board members on how to conduct parole hearings. As many of you know, the parole board continues to evaluate people, even though we abolished parole, over 2 decades ago. We have parole board hearings that include fishback defendants, those because of Senator Marsden's bill, those sentenced as juveniles, and geriatric individuals. The parole board is active and engaged. As documented recently by the current chairman, Chairman Chad Dotson, he's taken great strides to promote transparency. And I hope that this bill can build on that. There was a bill that was presented before Chairman Favola's meeting this morning dealing by Senator Stewart promoting transparency. That's what this bill does. Specifically, it adopts rules regarding the parole eligibility. It publishes statements of actions taken by the parole board by the 15th of each month. It includes the individual reasons for the granting or denial of parole. It conducts final deliberations on parole decisions in public meetings. And it publishes an annual report that summarizes actions taken by the parole board, and it provides a prisoner or his attorney with information that the parole board has. So that's what the bill does. There's an enactment clause on it. I would hope that the administration would be fully behind it because it, as I said, parrots or almost parallels what Senator Stewart's bill does. With that, I'm going to, there may be some people on Zoom, Madam Chair. And I know there's some people in the audience that want to speak briefly.
Okay, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the senator has submitted an amendment in the nature of the substitute. There's some fairly pervasive suggestions within this bill, and without any malice, I'd respectfully like to pass the bill by until next week so that we can examine the bill a little more carefully, but also get some input from some other sources. And the senator suggested he hopes that the administration would support it, and I would at least like to chat with some of them in this particular field about it.
Madam Chairman?
Senator Howell.
It also appears that there will be significant changes in the fiscal impact, but I can't determine what they are right now. So I also would like to have it passed by for the day.
Is it okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so without objection, this will pass by for the day. So we'll see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Senator Lucas and Senator Favola, you both have bills on the docket that we would like to go ahead and take those up. So Senator Lucas, you have a crime commission study.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, and again, I know what's being said about the studies, but I want to present anyway.
I will let you know that I have heard from Jay Larkin. They said they can take yours up. So go ahead and.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, SJ 250. Let me get to the right page this time.
Page 2.
Yeah. Currently, the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice is housed under the Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. Their structure reinforces the harmful narrative that children are threats to their community and in need of punitive rather than rehabilitative treatment. For every year spent in a youth prison in Virginia, a young person's probability of being arrested for another crime increases by nearly 1/3. Virginia's most recently published 3-year reconviction rate for youth committed and released from a juvenile prison is 73.5%. Research consistently shows that incarceration does not deter from crime activity and actually increases the likelihood that individuals will reoffend. Youth engagement in criminal behavior often stems from living in environments profoundly overburdened with lacking a clear public health issue. We're facing a public health crisis in the communities most significantly impacted by resource deprivation and the naturally resulting increase of criminalized behavior. As of 2020, over 90% of youth incarceration in Virginia required mental health services, and more than 70% of youth entering youth prisons demonstrated significant symptoms of a mental health disorder at the time of admission. An overwhelming majority of incarcerated youth are from communities living well below Virginia's poverty line. Everything must be on the table: housing and community revitalization projects in under-resourced neighborhoods, jobs and skills programs, counseling, meaningful relationships with caring adults, restoration justice practices, and other healing-centered interventions proven to help youth and families thrive. Moving DJJ to the Public Health Secretariat is a necessary step towards positive change, a paradigm shift that helps us continue building a youth justice system that serves youth and keeps families and communities safe by addressing and meeting the needs of the whole youth and not just the behavior that led to justice system involvement. 22 states currently house their equivalent of DJJ in their equivalent of the Secretary of Health and Human Services, including Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Iowa, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Utah, Vermont, Washington, and Wyoming. Virginia must join these states in shifting the way we address offending behaviors of youth. Placing the Department of Juvenile Justice under the jurisdictions of the Secretary of Health and Human Services is the only way to appropriately anchor the rehabilitation of our younger Virginians in trouble within agencies of care, not agencies tasked with responding to terrorist threat. A public health approach to juvenile justice and cage communities to determine effective strategies to intervene and prevent the need for juvenile detention. This approach will promote the healthy growth and development of all of Virginia's youth.
With all that being said,
I had to say all of it, Madam
your,
Chair.
what you're asking is for JLARC to study the feasibility of making that change.
Yes, ma'am. In
Okay.
Madam
short,
Chair.
that's what it says, but I wanted to give
Okay.
you the long version.
Senator Marston.
Thank you. This has been the trend around the country. Just to remind folks, I was Chief Deputy and Acting Director of the department, and I've consulted in about 35 states on juvenile justice issues. And this is the trend. Here in Virginia, we had 1,500 kids in our correctional system in 1997. We're down around 200 today. But the recidivism rate is 74%. It's higher than it was when I was there. It's a tougher group of kids than we've ever had before because we've screened many, many of them out and are trying to treat them in the community. But when you have that department, the senator is exactly correct. The mental health needs of those kids, the treatment needs of those kids are extraordinary, and I think they would be better served by transferring it to that agency. The best correctional juvenile system in the country is Missouri, and they are not even an agency. It's a subunit of Health and Human Services where they've left a professional director in place for 20 years who created a marvelous system. And so I would be in full support of going in this direction and having JLARC study this matter.
Okay,
Madam Chair, there are speakers in the audience.
we just need a motion.
Okay.
Move report.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded that SJ 250 be reported. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. My resolution actually directs the Virginia State Crime Commission to study juvenile restitution. And juvenile restitution, as you know, it's a payment, and there's no statute of limitations. Oftentimes, the payment can be quite high. The juvenile or his family can't make that payment, and it becomes a real burden. It becomes a burden, and we want to look at how to balance, restitution, the amount of restitution with, the need to compensate any victims of crime or to pay back any damages, because that requirement's also in statute. So they have to pay restitution and damages if there's property damages and other items associated with it. And I do know there's a victims crime fund, but our juvenile statute is not, in my view, it's not well written, and it actually puts a burden, it could put a terrible burden on the juvenile and his family. We also believe that there are some racial discrepancies or disparities, is the better word, in how restitution is actually applied. So a report would be due back November 30th, 2023 from the Crime Commission. I was working with the Supreme Court, the staff of the Supreme Court. They've already done some research, and I don't want to go through all the research, but I really believe this would be a step forward in restorative justice.
Madam Chairman?
Senator McDougal.
I just want to understand. So a person has a loss because somebody committed a criminal act, and now we're going to look at whether they should be entitled to be made whole because of the loss that they received by a criminal act?
May I respond?
Senator Favola.
We are not removing any obligation to pay property damages or anything else. What's happening is juveniles are being charged a fee as well as other payments, and that's become a real burden. So we're trying to look at whether the restitution amounts are too high, whether there should be a statute of limitations.
Madam Chairman, that's...
I'm leaving this to the Crime Commission, but I can see that you all are not very excited about the intent of my resolution.
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure, when the word restitution means the actual loss that somebody in a court has to make a determination based on some sort of documentation that's been shown, whether it's a medical bill or property damage. I don't want anybody to study that. I want the victim to receive that regardless of the age of the person that committed the crime. If you're talking about fees a jurisdiction is charging to administer, whether that is done, that is not something that goes to the victim, and that's not restitution. So that's a different animal. But if we're talking about restitution being studied, I'm going to fall down on the victim side regardless of the age of the person that committed the crime.
Madam Chair, I think Senator McDougal is sort of pointing out maybe where the philosophical debate is. I'm not saying that victims shouldn't receive compensation. We do have a victims' compensation fund. The juvenile should be held accountable, certainly in some respects. We are looking at how it is applied and whether it's applied fairly, whether there should be guidelines, whether we should put a time limit on the statute of limitations. I don't want to go through all the issues that I think the Crime Commission could look at, but this is something that Rise for Youth supports, the UR Children's Defense Clinic, the Virginia Indigent Commission. There are many groups that feel we would be making a step forward in our rehabilitative goal if we looked at this study.
Senator Norman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think there's a disconnect perhaps between the altruistic approach and what really happens in the real world. And there's some of us at this dais who live in the real world and the practicalities of really what goes on in these cases. And most of the jurisdictions that I practice on, when there is restitution being considered by the court, and it is considered, and generally the Commonwealth Attorney's Office will take a look at it, but it also requires documentation being submitted. But most importantly, the court has oversight over the ultimate decision, and they enter an order as part of the disposition of the case after considering restitution. So there's a little bit more of an oversight to that, and that's what happens in the real law practicing world that I'm in.
And Madam Chair, I understand that there is a process. I'm really looking at juveniles, and I want to see if that process should be tweaked, again, to bring us more towards a rehabilitative model.
Senator Marston, and then we need to wrap this up.
Okay, thank you. The problem is even more complicated than that. I've tried to solve this problem, but there are thousands and thousands of cases in Fairfax County alone that people are now approaching retirement age, Social Security age, who still have restitution orders in the court. These cases are still open. And we've been unable to find a way to take these cases and allow them to be transferred to the adult system when these kids are adult for civil action. It is a devilishly complicated problem, and I'm hoping that they could look at that as well, because it would get at some of Senator Favola's concerns, but also the backlog of these cases. And people don't get paid back. The court does not haul 49-year-old people back before them to hold them accountable for restitution. They just don't. And what we need is a way for these victims to be able to get that transferred to civil court so that they can get compensated for the damage that was done to them, while at the same time perhaps looking at some improvements to the restitution system on current juveniles.
Madam Chairman, just speaking
Senator
to
McDougal.
Speaking to the motion, I certainly understand the desire to make sure that we work with perpetrators of crimes who are juveniles, but the way this bill is written is we're going to take whether the person that committed a criminal act has the ability to pay for the damage that criminal act was committed, and whether the victim is going to be out. If we were talking about what we do after a certain number of years, how that's transferred, that's a logical conversation to have. But if we're talking about whether the individual, regardless of their age, has the ability to pay for the criminal act, and that's the determination, well, that's the language it says here. It talks about restitution are impossible for most youth to pay, and to look at their juveniles' ability to pay. So just as a philosophical view, we hope nobody commits a criminal act, but the victim is out the money, has to pay for the damage, and maybe they don't have the ability to pay for it. Maybe that puts them in indebtedness for a long period of time. And not everybody has entitlement to that victim's injury fund, but I don't even see that language in here saying that the victim's injury fund will be used in that case. So I have some real significant concerns about this resolution.
2 minutes total.
For Virginia's children, we strongly support this resolution and hope that the Crime Commission would have the opportunity to take the time to really look what is the best solution, that and no matter what locality that a youth lives in, that they will have the same opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Valerie Slater, Executive Director of Rise for Youth. We strongly support this bill, and we recognize all of the issues that have been raised, and those are the issues that we are hoping that the Crime Commission is going to be able to address. Thank you.
Good morning, Senators. Monica Hutchinson for Virginia State Conference, NAACP, and I'm here to say that we strongly support this bill as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom?
Anyone who would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There is one speaker on Zoom, Madam Chairman.
1 minute. Still got a little time here.
Just 1 second. We were having some technical difficulties earlier, Madam Chairman.
Madam Chair.
Senator Uvola.
I did speak to the Crime Commission, and I know that they already developed their work plan for this upcoming year. If it is the wish of the committee to send my resolution with a letter to the Crime Commission.
George Joseph, and I strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
That completes the speakers, Madam Chairman.
Okay, is that your recommendation, Senator Uvola?
Yes, I would be fine sending this bill to the Crime Commission with or a letter. I guess what would end up happening is that we would defeat the resolution and it would go to the Crime Commission with a letter. Is that the process? And we would ask them to study it. Yeah, so that's what I thought. You would have to PBI it and send it to the Crime Commission with a letter. Yes, and I would be fine. Can the letter come from the chair and we can? Okay. I withdraw my motion. All right, Madam Chair, I will move my resolution.
It's been moved and seconded that SJ 229 be reported. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. It's reported. Okay. Okay, we have one last thing. It's on page 5 is SJ 232. Senator Reeves designating March in 2023 and each succeeding year as Problem Gambling Awareness Month in Virginia.
What? Problem Gaming Month. Gambling Month. I move the resolution.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Madam Chair.
Those opposed?
Excuse me, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
that clears this docket. Okay.
Gambling Month.
Oh, okay. All right.